Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and we're finally back with our 25 turn guides. I've not done this in absolutely ages, and to be honest, with all the DLC coming out and with all the new content patches and so on, there wasn't really an era of stability. But now that we know that Three Kingdoms is coming out for a while and we're not going to have to deal with so many updates, it might be the perfect time to start getting back into these. So before we begin, just like every guide I've ever done, there are a few things to note. 1. These guides are tried and tested at least 5 times. 2. All guides are in legendary mode and very hard battles. And 3. Just like every Total War game, unfortunately, they can vary. So your results may vary if you do try to replicate this. However, without further ado, let's begin. So, I wanted to start off with Ikit due to the fact that he's one of the newest content patches and I absolutely love the Skaven. So we start off with Ikit and Skaven Blight and a small agent here. Now, there's a lot of things that can be done, but with our first turn, what we have to do is get rid of the Beastmen. Whilst many would think getting to Tobaro would be a good idea, it's actually better to get rid of these Beastmen just here. So let's just begin. This is relatively simple. The only thing that I would suggest is keeping to fighting as many battles as you can. Mainly because we know that auto-resolve has a little bit of a problem and we don't want to risk losing the Jezzails. That and the Doomflayer too. We don't mind losing the Rattling Gun, but it's quite important to keep as much going. So let's just get into the battle. Alright, so we find ourselves in our first battle, and I'm not going to bore you too much with the fights themselves unless it's something quite big, but you know, it's a very basic ambush. It's not like we're going to be dealing with much, is it? So, let's just get going, and I'll see you all after. The beastmen had been sufficiently slaughtered, and we're just going to eat the captives to regain a few of our units. It's not about doing so much damage, it's about getting them away. Now, you might think it's a bit odd, but trust me, it will all make sense very, very soon. Now, all we have to do is just try and get back over here. As you can see, we can just barely move in and be able to get a little bit of a replenishment. With Skaven Blight, once that's being done, being upgraded to level 2, being able to get just a little bit more growth coming in so we can unlock ferocious plans, and once again working on food. You're not going to be building a very big army with Ikit, but you're actually just going to be focusing on You're not going to be building a big army with Ikit, but you're going to be focusing on a second army straight off the bat. The main thing about this game is once you start off as Clan Skryre, you want to be able to take Margarita. Once that's been taken, you can actually focus on other things. So now that we find ourselves back into the camp, we need to make a new army, so get something cheap. Everything's quite expensive obviously, but you'll want to find something that you can have in low upkeep, which is generally either a Gracier or a Warlock Master. So what you'll want to do is find one that works out best for you. Now this will vary for you, I do have to warn you. Ambush chance 25%, not too bad. But we want to work on a little bit of damage. So let's just get a Gracie of Ruin. Boost him up a little bit. He's already coming out with a decent amount of loyalty, so that's not too bad. We want to get him some of these guys and then just work up with slaves. Nothing too good, nothing too bad. Ikit is also leveled up from the last battle, so we want to get him Route Marcher, just so we can do a little bit of stuff over here. Now what we're going to do is start focusing on Tobaro, eventually just working our way this way. We want to grind up a few levels whilst we're building up this army over here, and eventually take this before we take anything else. But we have 25 turns to solidify ourselves. Remember with the Skaven, you're not playing a fast expansion until much later on in the game. So now we find ourselves on turn 2. And unfortunately we do have a bit of a food deficiency, but that is to be expected at the very early game of the Skaven. We want to start moving into Tobaro, which only has a very basic garrison, but we will not unfortunately be doing any sort of auto-resolve. So let's move in. Yes, the odds look a little bit in their favor, but this is obviously because it's in legendary mode. All we have to do is do a little bit of damage, so I'll see you in a bit. As can be expected, that garrison doesn't really pose much of a threat. Now we're just going to expand our Under Empire and relax for a little bit. We've settled our first Under Empire, so let's just start building up, get some food, and then relax a little bit, because it's going to take a while till we can actually do something. So we can't really move much after attacking, so we're just going to wait here and start focusing up on everything else. Next, I'd like to just improve the units a little bit, just to have something there. And obviously, as can be expected, purchase more slaves. Next, we got technology to work on. We want to just start working on strength in numbers straight off the bat, but once we can unlock other stuff like devious plans and ruthless plans, focus on them just to get some extra food coming in. Moving on to our third turn, there's not much that's going to be changing throughout many turns now. What we want to do is keep doing damage to Tobaro to bait the two armies which will be forming in Margarita. After which, then we can do as much damage as we so well please. But as can be expected, we're just going to have to rinse and repeat, meaning that we're going to have to attack Tobaro, move back, attack Tobaro, move back, and so on and so forth. Until then, we'll just make a bunch more slaves because they're going to be well needed, and I shall see you all in another turn. Keep sacking the settlement as much as you can just so you can improve Ikit's army. It's not going to be the most glamorous of stuff, but hey, it's going to work out in the future. It's the case of just building up as much as you can. But once you do that, focus on building up your clan rats. You don't have a lot, but you want to be able to do some damage, and also work on some ammunition. You want to be able to do as much as possible. Moving on to our third turn, there's just a few things to do. Not a lot will happen very early on into the game, unfortunately, but it's what has to happen. So until then, let's just build up this, and with our little bit of money that we will get in a second from attacking Tobaro, we can then buy some more slaves. Once again, I won't bother you with these fights, and as you can see, I go through them very quickly. I've got them just through the screen as a little time lapse, but not much happens with these things because they are quite easy to sort out. Very early, and it's a garrison, you're not really going to be fighting much, are you? And once again, make sure that you sack, giving you just a little bit more money so you can actually afford to buy a few more slaves. It's going to be like this for a while, guys. I know it's not the most glamorous thing, but it has to be done, trust me. It's going to be well needed when the game gets a little bit harder, in about 5 turns more or less, if everything goes the same as the rest of the tries I've done. We've finished our next turn and gotten a nice little income boost, so now we can do, once again, attacking Tobaro. It's going to be like this for a while. I still rather not take advantage and lose anything, because auto-resolving is a bit of an issue, so I will carry on playing the fights. If you guys don't know, I generally tend to play all the fights now. I don't really just risk it by going, oh yeah, I'm going to win this, and then just lose instantly, or lose like all my artillery or so on. No losses whatsoever and a lot of damage. This is how we like it. Seeing as our units are now up to full speed, we can now work on raiding. We don't really need those last few slaves, and we can just work on building up our guys here. And lastly, getting some units. So let's just get 2 more units of clan rats because they will be needed, and then just 2 more units of slaves. We're going to be finding ourselves moving pretty much next turn. All we got to do is just once again attack Tobaro and level up again. It's important to note, guys, don't be discouraged because it's a little bit slow at the beginning. This is very, very much planned. You want to be able to protect yourselves until the time is right to strike. Remember, the Skaven plan everything very, very much in detail. With Tobaro sacked once again, we find ourselves just being almost ready to start launching an attack. As we can see here, the Beastmen have lost a fight with Margarita, which works out for us quite well. Let's just work on just a few more slaves, and now we have to do something different. Now we have to build up another army. This was the best option for me, and I've decided to just work on him, but once we're waiting for that, we can just do this, get our levels sorted. So I want to get something very decent, which is getting their leadership down a little bit, and now just building up with this guy. Some extra ammunition is always useful. We're going to be moving next turn, and after which we're going to start working our way down to Margarita. Now, it's very important to note that you might lose Skaven Blight, but that is perfectly fine. Skaven Blight itself is not that important that early in the game. It's getting your solidification in Estalia. And once you've captured Estalia, you can start planning to retake Skaven Blight and moving down into Talia or Bretonia, but we'll discuss that once we've done so. It's time to start planning to move, with firstly moving out this army down here, and trying to get a little bit of XP, because he cannot go in raid stance just yet. Sack the city once again. We do not want to take it just yet, and just work towards trying to bait them. So put the first character in ambush stance, and the next one in raiding stance. It is here that we get another level up, and we can work in a variety of ways. I normally like to get a Doom Flare with Ikit. Not getting the Doom Wheel, but just the Doom Flare to do a lot of damage to infantry. Then I want to move this character in, and start building up some slaves in an effort to quell any possible rebellions that may appear. So the Beastmen are running around, which, yeah, it can happen. We're not too bothered about them. They can destroy Tobaro if they want. We've already got as much as we needed from it, so let's just let them pass. Looks like they actually just want to be over here. So we're going to have to deal with them just to get some cash in, which might actually work in our favor, because we do need the money. I'm rather curious to see if we can actually make peace with the Beastmen. The Beastmen have shown to be quite a nuisance, so let's just try and take them out one by one. Firstly, we're going to go for his almost destroyed stack. That's not going to be possible. We're going to actually have to fight together. So we failed to ambush, which is understandable, and it can happen in most cases. We don't have a lot of ambush priority at the moment, but that works out very well for us. Now that we have everything, we're 3 turns away from getting strength in numbers, which is perfectly fine. We have a nice little defense here, if it is needed, but let's just go and destroy these Beastmen. Now you might think that this battle is wholly against our favor, and in some cases you might be correct, but we're only doing this just to do damage, so let's just get rid of these guys and try get some cash in. It is very important to note with these battles that you shouldn't really be too worried about losing Skaven. They are meant to die after all. You just basically need your Doomflyer, and everything else. But until then, we've got a flank coming from here, so let's just use these guys to die and deal with everything else whilst our flank arrives. That's very interesting. It seems that this new version has taken off the Doomflayer's Warpfire Thrower, which can happen and is perfectly fine. You don't really need it if that's the case. It's how updates change the game that can really change how you play the game, but it's perfectly fine with these things because at the end of the day, you are doing a lot of damage. When fighting these battles, get yourself into position and you're pretty much done. Once you've gotten rid of the big enemies, you don't have to worry too much about anything else. Let's just get these guys over here, just like that. These guys have broken, so let's just go chase these guys and bring these two back. Because we do have to worry about those Minotaurs, which will be causing us massive problems. Khazrak's on his way, but most of his other forces have been defeated. We have killed the Minotaurs, which is going to make things a lot easier for us. Focus firing in Khazrak will do very, very well for us at this point because he needs to be destroyed. You might be wondering why I'm using Howling Warp Gale on units, and I'm not too sure, but a lot of people have been saying lately that it does present a bit of an issue for units that generally move around. They'll be having bugs and slowed down just a tiny bit. Whether this is true or just a bug is unknown, but we'll find out about that soon. With their army split up, we're just going to be a lot better off doing damage. So all we have to do is just keep working like this, and eventually we'll kill them all off. Perfect. We've seen now that the beastmen have been defeated. We've probably gotten a decent amount of cash from that, and now we can build up and start destroying. You might be wondering if this is even worth it, but an extra 2% does really help here. Focusing down the last of the beastmen is very important, and we've just noticed now that there's a human army moving up to Tobaro, which is perfectly fine, they can do as they wish here. Before we do deal with the humans, however, we'll have to get rid of these guys, so let's just go and defeat the beastmen. Perfectly fine, no heroes to deal with. The only thing that's actually any worrying is the actual unit of Minotaurs there, but it's only 1 out of 4. This should be relatively fast. In terms of this, we know that the main army is over there, which we'll be dealing with very quickly, and their allies are coming from this section, which it's not really going to bother us, is it? Now that we have that, we can focus fire on this. You can start preparing. How far are we here? Yeah, still a little bit far before we can throw the brass orb. Our Jezals have moved. It's important to keep an eye on your troops, especially your ranged units. There is a bug with the Total War series where your guys will just start charging random locations. The beastmen have been defeated, as can be expected. There's not really going to be many problems here. We've eaten the captives and tried to regenerate as much as we can, trying to move very slowly here because we need to be very careful. Now as we move, we will want to move in ambush stance in an effort to try and remain hidden. If Tobaro wishes to be reinforced by Lupio Skryre, that works for us. We won't have to use our Doom Rocket. If we do have to fight them, on the other hand, we will need to use the Doom Rocket and hopefully do as much damage as possible. The idea is to have Margarita before turn 20, leaving us 5 turns to solidify ourselves. Once you're nice and solidified, that's pretty much it. You can now start stomping through the rest. The Skaven are pretty easy to handle the moment that you get a decent generation of food and a few armies to boot. We've moved on to our 9th turn, and it looks like Lupio wants to go and defend Tobaro, which works out very well for us, leaving Margarita probably quite undefended. So let's just move in a little bit more and start planning our next move. So we've moved our Skaven forces out in an effort to try and ambush this fellow over here. We're going to be moving Ikit down here and hoping for the best. Our ambush failed, but this works out, because we do have a Doom Rocket hidden away, don't we? Now you might be wondering why I'm so keen to use a Doom Rocket in this situation, and it's purely because we might have to just destroy these enemies and catch the other ones unaware. Seeing as they'll barely move at this point, we do have an ace in the hole. Unfortunately, we can't really get too close to see the destruction, but this was better than nothing. Most of the army's been destroyed, and now we can just go reap the spoils. The humans have been defeated, as can be expected. You can't really think that you're going to come up against the Skaven and then survive. And as expected, Lupio wants to escape, but we're going to have to try and go right back for him. We can't really let him come through our flank now, can we? Our friend Lupio has escaped, and we're just right hot on his trail. As much as I would have liked to destroy Margarita straight off the bat, we're going to have to make sure that he doesn't return. So with that, let us build a new Doom Rocket. Our armies are ready. We don't really have much to deal with, which is perfectly fine. So let's just go and go again. Perfect, an ambush. This is going to give them enough time to reform and us to use our Doom Rocket. If you don't have the ambush when you're playing against them and this happens to you, you're perfectly fine. Don't be worried. These things happen, but you can still reform them and just shoot them down. Our allies are appearing up here, so we're going to do exactly the same and hope for the best. Let's bring these guys up here. These guys over here, and we're going to gamble just in case, because we might need a little bit more magic. Quite a good one, to be honest. See, this is what we want. A swift reform like this is going to give us enough time to launch. And their army has been destroyed. See how quickly these things can work once you have a Doom Rocket? They're absolutely perfect, and it is horrendous when the Skaven have access to it. We've enslaved the captives in hopes of getting more food, which is going to work out in our favour. Now let's just move down a little bit and try and sort out our regeneration. Ikit will heal up a little bit, whilst Charge Lock is going to raid so we can get a little bit more food. Some healing would do great there, and with you, my friend, let us get Warp Lightning again. Now that we solidified ourselves right on the coast of Margarita, we know that they're going to be recruiting, which is perfectly fine. We have numbers. Now, Skaven Blight itself is suffering a little bit of an issue here in terms of a little bit of a public order problem. But it's fine. We're going to build up some more slaves eventually and take it over. This has worked out rather well. They've built up a second army, and they've got some extra troops, which was to be expected. But now, we're going to try and lay siege to Margarita. We have to lay siege for a turn, which is perfectly fine, but until then, we're going to try and take over the new army that they've built. We've laid siege and made the other unit retreat, which is perfectly fine. Our hopes is that he'll try and just attack us so we can just take them all out without having to deal with walls, but until then we can just relax a little bit and get ruthless plans to get some food. That being said, Skaven Blight can be upgraded, but we're not going to do so just yet until we take Margarita, just in case we'll need a lot of money just to upgrade this to, I believe, level 4. I'm not 100% sure. But until then, let's just wait till turn 12. Perfect, it would seem that the humans want to attack us first. This is going to work out a lot better for us, so all we need to do right now is just fight the battle and sort them all out. 9 out of 10 times this will happen. You will have to get very lucky to position it in such a way that they'll get desperate, but when it does happen it works out really well for you. With our enemies coming from one side and our allies coming from another, we've positioned ourselves to snipe any enemies that are coming for us. Looks like they're going to be far off, which it's understandable. Not our best option, but hey, they want to be protected and, well, we can't really blame them, can we? Let's just move our artillery over here. They're going to be coming in numbers, and that's fine, because we have just as many. Whilst we don't have a Doom Rocket, we do have a few brass orbs, and we can use that to our advantage. Let's just slow down time here, and just wait for them to get into position. Don't be concerned with the amount of enemies that there are, it's not really much of a problem and you're going to be able to do quite a bit to them just like this. As with most cases, don't worry about the rattling guns, you don't have to worry. If they die, they die. They're not the best unit for you. But now just swarm as much as you can and you're going to be golden. You can use your numbers very well here to overwhelm your enemy and start splitting them up. Your Skaven are not very powerful, but they can do as much damage as you can expect them to do. And with that, the humans have been defeated once again. They've taken heavy losses and they won't be able to replenish whilst we lay siege, This is going to work out perfectly for us once we come into their city. Much of their forces have taken damage. They're just reduced now to just 200 men, whilst we still have over 500 Skaven. So sometimes you'll get little events like this, and you know, whilst loyalty and giving him something cool would be cool, I just kind of want the money. We found ourselves here, and pretty much I don't think we can. I think we had to wait one more turn. No, we can actually come in. So before we do anything, let's just upgrade this guy a little bit, because we'll want to actually make those clan rats a little bit better. They're not a lot of clan rats, but damage is still damage. Now let's look over here. Once we take the city, we'll be upgrading, and as you can see, within 12 turns we've captured Margarita, and we've been able to protect ourselves here. Now, don't expect to be able to do this all the time. You should always give yourself at least 15 turns to take over Margarita. The damage has been done. There's quite a few of them left, but I think we're pretty much okay. So let's go and destroy the city and take it over. So here we begin. We don't really need this siege equipment because we're going to be just charging in like lunatics. So let's just get our forces ready. Remember, don't worry about the rattling guns. They can die here for all that we care. We just need to care about the Jezzails. Our forces aren't a lot, and we do have to deal with these guys here. There's going to be quite a lot of enemies, but we can pretty much destroy them quite fast. Move your reinforcements to the other side to be able to do as much damage there as possible, and start working towards doing stuff like this. So here you want to throw a brass orb and just cast. And here you want to cast. I'm not too sure if this is still a bug, but you can still cast up here, which makes it for a lot of damage. I remember Creative Assembly saying they wanted to remove it eventually, but unfortunately they haven't. Well, fortunately for us, really, considering the fact that we do have quite a bit here. Don't worry about the rattling guns, like I said, they're not important. The Jezzails, on the other hand, are, so let's just withdraw them now. The AI has a little bit of a bug here where they'll for some reason start moving around and defending areas that aren't so much important. Which, you know, works out for us because then we can just start destroying areas over here. By the time they start coming back, it's too late. Margarita now belongs to us, which we can now upgrade it all the way up to level 4. If we would have had a bit more food, we would have been able to do more, but hey, this happens. Let's just loot and occupy. And with that, we've taken a lot of territory. We're going to be moving up to Tobaro now, but before that happens, we have some upgrades to work on. With that territory firmly under our control, we can start preparing just in case Skaven Blight has any issues. Let's start upgrading that and getting some more money. Bilbali itself is quite okay. We're going to be working towards that in a second, but before we do anything else, we're going to try and regain our food. So firstly, we're going to start moving him up. And now we can start working on getting some more growth. This is the great thing about being able to work on so many things at once. The Skaven expansion at the beginning is very slow, but once you've captured Ofelias, you can then decide where to move next. Be warned that obviously you will need a big stockpile of food, so start preparing some food choices. They're hoping for a peace treaty, which would normally work in our favour where we can accept it and then destroy them. Unfortunately though, a lot of people don't see us as reliable and we can't really risk an invasion from any other faction just yet. Don't worry, when other factions such as those declare war on you, they'll barely come up to you. Our cash is improving, but unfortunately we do not have the means to taking Total War just yet due to our lack of food. Whilst we can capture it normally, it'll be better just to upgrade it to level 3 straight from the bat. So until then, we'll just move our way up and start raiding with a multitude of armies. Bear in mind we will have to keep this place secure, so this army is staying right here just in case a rebellion pops up. Until then though, we can start working on upgrading various other buildings. There are two choices here. You can take Total War as soon as you have the food, or let a rebellion deal with them. Generally I just let them do that and then I'll just take the city. It saves me the hassle and I can keep secured in all my lines. Obviously Skaven Blight is going to be under siege very soon by rebels if I don't start protecting myself. In terms of expansion we're doing okay. We're 14 turns in and we're actually just moving off very well. So we're going to start moving up this way, and if the city hasn't been taken we're going to sack it once to try and get the money, and then we're just going to take it. Total War is within our reach, so let's just try and take it over. There's not much of a problem here. We don't really have to deal with much, just a few of their crossbowmen, but we'll make quick work of them. Let's destroy these humans and see what we can do. Once again, it's the same tactic. We're not going to move much because they'll be coming to us eventually. The only problem is obviously sometimes the AI just wants to stay perfectly still for a while, which baffles me. There's a few times where I've seen armies stay perfectly still, and I mean you could just be shooting them down with artillery and not have to worry about anything. As can be expected, we'll make quick work of these guys because there's not really much that they can do. The city has fallen and we can see here that we can upgrade all the way up to level 3, so let's just do so. This works out for us because we can now do this, build up a wall and get rid of this building. Which, you know, it's going to give us a little bit of money, nothing too perfect, but better than nothing. Then we'll move up these guys over here in an effort to protect this territory because we know that a rebellion is going to be popping up soon. Skaven Blight looks fine for now, and it's going to be even better once we can start upgrading. Ofelias has been destroyed, and now we have 3 settlements to our name. Now we just have to regroup, strengthen our numbers, and plan for the next capture. We find ourselves on our 16th turn, with 2 Bretonnian armies coming up, and a garrison slowly forming, so what we have to do right now is prepare an army just in case. With that also happening, we might as well start preparing other different things. With the armies slowly coming up, we might as well prepare that and then eventually demolish this so we can get our money back and start focusing on other items. The problem right now is we do have a bit of a loyalty issue over here. So we're going to try and build up some slaves and hope that it's going to keep it moving. Other than that, we do have some research, and I clicked on the wrong thing as per usual. Some public order will work very, very well here. We're going to find ourselves stagnant for about 3 to 4 turns whilst we're still building up and dealing with any issues that might come from here. Upgrading to get devious plans will be very, very useful, especially if we're going to reduce the upkeep for slaves. Now, they might not be very expensive, but it does help. The Bretonnian forces sail forward to us, which is fine, considering that they're not really the strongest force that we're going to have to be dealing with. We have a nice garrison, and we have a nice army. Let's just prepare ourselves a little bit more. With that, we're also going to have to start moving our forces a bit out, due to the fact that we're going to have to start getting some food, and fast. It would seem that that area is pretty much left unopposed. We're going to have to come back though, given the fact that we are going to have to deal with a rebel. These things do happen, obviously, and we'll do with what we can. Once again, our friends are getting a little closer, but it looks like they're just bringing very bog-standard units. This works out in our favour. Seeing as we're going to have to be dealing with a rebellion, we might just speed it up a little bit. We'll bring the rebellion to ourselves and gain some food at the same time. Other than that, we are pretty much okay. Now, that I don't think takes advantage of the ones that are already spawned, but we're okay for anything else. In terms of everything, we're quite set up. We just have to stabilize ourselves, and then eventually we can work towards Delia. There might be some confusion with these Bretonnians, because for some reason they're moving up to Miragliano instead of to me, but we'll let them go through their own devices. That being said, these guys do have quite a hefty army, and it might present to be a problem, so we're going to let them carry on and see how far close we can get. If they can attack us, we can have our garrison defending at the same time. Right now we need to get food, and food is very important. We're also going to try and build up over here. This army is not going to be here for long, unfortunately, but by that point we'll have walls in Tolbaro. It would seem that the Bretonnians have Skavenblight on their mind, which, to be honest, works out for me if this is what they want to take over. Until then, we're still getting a decent amount of stuff over here. We're going to have to deal with quite a rather large army, so we're going to just move in ever so slightly into here. And over here, we're going to try and see if we can bait them a little bit. So we do have a decent garrison, nothing too perfect, but they're already here. They're not going to be doing much, so let's just move down over here. A rebellion is very, very common at this point, so what we're going to try and do is bait them. That can go here. The rebellion will come in, and these guys can come over here. It is my hope here that they will attack the rebels and then work their way to Skavenblight, damaging themselves a little bit so I can actually just take them out. Unfortunately, this was not as expected. However, we can just try and see what we're going to do over here. First, we're going to have to lose some loyalty due to the fact that we don't have the money. And then probably try and buy his loyalty back with the same amount of money. Which works out a little bit better. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's still something. And what we're going to try and do is snipe out both these guys in one hit. So let's just move up over here. Can we actually attack him with our ally? No, we cannot just yet. So let's just moving up a little bit more. This is an ambush. We can actually destroy these guys no problem. So we're actually just going to see an auto-resolve, just to show you guys how it works. Heavy losses on all fronts, as you can see. We didn't lose anything too big for once, which is actually not too bad. But you have to really be careful when it comes to auto-resolving. We find ourselves open over here, which works out pretty well for us, so let's see if we can disrupt the Bretonnian forces. Over here we can ambush once again, but we have a lot of forces, so let's just take out one army. The great thing about early Bretonnian armies is we know that they won't come with a lot of range, which works out for us, but we do have to be careful in terms of these guys, because they will do a lot of damage. Let's just do like that, work very, very slowly, start charging in, and bring our reinforcements. Now, they're going to be a while till they get here, but Ikit can more or less handle himself. That was a bit of a problem. We want to keep these guys away. For some reason, he's trying to charge up this way, which works out for us because we can turn around and fire. Make sure to move out the Warlock Engineer so he does not die. You don't mind losing these guys because they are quite weak, and we didn't bring quite a good army here anyway. The Bretonnian Lord is dead, which works out for us, so let's start moving up these guys and do some damage over here. We've managed to do some damage and be able to actually regain some food, some money, and obviously some casualties. Now let's see if we can get rid of the extra unit too. Unfortunately for us, it looks like we're going to have to try and retreat back and hope for the best. So firstly, let's move back to Skavenblight. And secondly, let's move this army down this way. The Bretonnians themselves will not cause too much of a problem. We're trying to make sure that we can get them attacking and do some damage here. We didn't lose much in terms of garrison. I don't think we lost any units. So when they come in to attack us, we'll be able to try and snipe them out. Our city is now under siege down here, which is perfectly fine. Let's just see what they have. No artillery, just a lot of anti-armor units, which is fine. We can deal with that when they attack us. Remember, by that point you could also decide to build a Doom Rocket. And let's just do so just in case. Yes, we're going to lose a little bit of food, but if they attack us, we can just destroy them straight off the bat. Now, in terms of this, we do have to deal with quite a few things, so can we just see if we can snipe out one unit in one go? We cannot, so that's perfectly fine. Just move back out. When these things happen, you just have to move back into position. Our good friend over here is becoming rather useless to us. He's not really doing a lot, and let's just face it, he's not gonna do damage with all these slaves, so let's just get rid of this unit now. I made a little mistake there, as you can see. Now we can do this. We have a little rebellion here though. It looks like he wants to try and take the city from us, which is perfectly fine. Skaven Blight itself is relatively well defended. We should be able to come back and defend it should we need to. This can happen when your loyalty drops so low, so just make sure to get rid of them. Just like that. Get some food. And enjoy the fact that you've got some more food. Now, in terms of this, we're going to have to try and hide off for a little bit because we will be sniped. So let's just go back here and let's get this to make the brass orbs a little stronger. And we're back into turn 23. What I've done is moved back into Skaven Blight in hopes of providing protection due to the fact that we do have enemies encircling us and starting to recruit, it seems. That being said, there's not a lot we can do. We will be dealing with an invasion very, very soon, but when they do that, we'll be able to destroy them. We've surveyed our territory, and we know that we're stuck here for a few more turns. The guide is due to end soon, but we will be stabilized by then. The Bretonnians seem to be spreading out a little bit, so let's try and snipe them again. This time we had more success, so let's just get rid of them. Once again we find ourselves in the same map that we were before. This time we don't have any reinforcements, but we shouldn't have a problem. We've got to be very careful with Ikit to make sure he doesn't die. But the Bretonnians seem to have broken relatively quickly, to be honest. With these Bretonnians now dead, we can look towards getting a bit more food into our arsenal. The Bretonnians have run again, which can benefit us in certain ways, but we do find that there's a second army over here. Now, can we risk this? This is the most important thing. Let's try and increase our ambush chances, and let's get some more elite units into the fray. Not so much. Let's just try and move out just in case. Remember, with the Skaven you have to be smart about these things. Last thing you want to do is get caught unawares. You're not the strongest faction, especially very early on. With that, we're near the end of everything, and we're pretty much seeing that the game is going okay. Remember with the Skaven, as you start building up, everything will work out better. But we'll go over it at the end of the turn 25. We still have one more turn to make sure that we're okay. We are on our 25th and final turn, and here is where we're going to make sure that everything is fine for Skaven Blight. First, we're just going to finish off some random stuff, such as, for example, getting a miniature version of the Doom Rocket, which is pretty cool to be honest. And now we're going to go get rid of the Bretonnians. Success, we have an ambush. So, let's just go get rid of these guys, shall we? A very similar map to the one that we fought in before, it seems. So, this is going to be pretty easy, to be honest. We're just going to do this. Put this guy over here. Bring our friends over here. And see how much damage we can do. But with that, let's begin. The Bretonnians have been defeated, and we're just going to try and replenish our forces just a bit. Unfortunately for them, they've actually ran to a place that leaves them relatively undefended. So let's just work on trying to increase our ambush chance once again, and let's move in. Not an ambush this time, but very little units to deal with, so let's get rid of them. This will be relatively quickly, so we're not really going to deal too much with talking here, as we've done with all the other battles. Very early on, when you're fighting early armies, you don't have to worry. This should destroy their army. They could have a chance of running. Sometimes the AI for some reason gets 3 chances, but you're usually just fine after destroying them very close to a shoreline. Once again, we should focus on getting our food back up and running, because soon we're going to start moving on to new cities. We can see here that they have officially died, and unfortunately we won't be able to move much just now, but we're not going to really have a problem with a minor army over there. We do have one problem to deal with, which is right here with a bunch of greatswords. However, we're going to make quick work with them, because we do have a Doom Rocket. Let's look at the map. Fairly good, fairly good. Alright, well, let's start going and destroying these rebels. We have a very weak army, but we don't really care too much about what's going to happen to these guys. All we want is one good shot. Let's see how it goes. Perfect. It's done its damage, and now we can just charge in. Now they do have some greatsword units which will do some damage to us, but at this point it doesn't really matter. As you can see, the Skaven hordes are charging in through various locations and pretty much making them sweat. And we're done. These rebels are pretty much destroyed. Let's just make sure that they die out well enough. There we go. That was a pretty decent shot actually. But let's start ending it now. The Estalians have been destroyed, and now let's enslave them. With just a few running away, and we're going to chase right after them. They have a fair amount of units, and I've just decided to move some slaves into one unit, because we know that we do have the Council Guard. Now let's try and see if we can ambush them and finish off these rebels. We can, and we will. So let's just see what we can do here. There's not a lot of them. They will be able to do some damage. However, we do have the numbers against them. Fair, they're not the best units, but the sooner we can get rid of them, the sooner everything in our territory is safe. The humans are marching, and we have a well amount of Skaven here just getting ready to charge. So let's see how much damage we can do. Looks like we're missing there. That's fine. Their lord is dead, which works out for us. And many of their units are now finally dying out. As you can see, we defeated the rebels, and I've moved my army back to Margarita. Next turn, we'll discuss what the battle plan would be, would we continue. Before ending everything, I just want to say, look at this. I've beaten him down so badly. He declared war on me, by the way, but we're going to give him the peace treaty, because I want the money. We find ourselves at the end of our 25 turn guide, where we've captured a nice walled city and have defended Skavenblight. Soon, what we'd be doing is upgrading our public order in various locations such as Margarita and hopefully building up Skavenblight. Once it's more stable down here, I would suggest moving up to build Bali and capturing that too. You have a decent amount of food, so you'll be able to wall that off fairly quickly. Next, once everything is stable in Skavenblight, I would suggest taking a second army and going to Mirigliano, because it has a pasture and that's extra food that's worth it for you. I would totally recommend taking over Talia and Sartosa and making your way around through here. Now, you can work up your way into Bretonnia, but you will have to deal with various Bretonian armies, whereas here, they're pretty much splintered and you can do as you please. But that is totally up to you. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. Do you have any other races you'd like me to cover? Please let me know in the comments below, and I'll be sure to give them a look. But until then, my friends, thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you all again very, very soon.